were scattered throughout this space, now they all suddenly make sense. One thing I really love about our collaboration on this project is when Nathan really makes me stop and think about something. And he presented us one of his 5 sticky notes for this week, did that. It made me stop and think. And we'll talk about that later today. But one of the things that I've been focusing on this week, instead of adding new things like he did with his sticky notes, was a reference to what we talked about last week, reorganizing the things that we've already collected in this massive, unorganized list, and started to putting them into subplots, scenes, individual characters, and then cross-referencing between the two. And it has felt like a lot of work. And I start to wonder, all right, is this overkill? Are we overcomplicating this? Are we making this harder than it needs to be? I don't think other authors do that. But I look back and we said, we want to be New York Times best-selling authors. That's going to take above average effort.
Yes. And not just in the organizational side, but just in the writing itself, which seems obvious.
Right.
But one of those specific areas that we think we're going to need to spend a lot of investment of our time is there's one particular scene that we have at the very end of our book that we want to be overwhelmingly emotional. And in order to do justice to that, we need to practice what that scene is going to look like, because it's going to be a transition scene of a character from one version of history to another version. And we need to figure out what that's going to look like, how that character is going to experience that, so that when the time comes to present that overwhelming emotion of that transition, we know how to do it.
Yeah, I like the way you worded it. You said, we need to become excellent at writing scenes like that.
Mm-hmm.
And as we were talking through it, I had a picture in my head of what I want that scene to feel like. And you may have seen sculptures like this, that it looks like just a whole bunch of random pieces of metal in weird places. And then you shift your perspective and you start to look at it from a different angle, and it all resolves into a picture that's you couldn't tell from the sides. And you said, all these individual things that were scattered throughout this space, now they all suddenly make sense. I want that feeling when we get to the end, oh, now everything makes sense. But that is really hard to do.
Yes, it is. There are a lot of things that are hard to do, but we choose to do these things not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
They are hard. Yeah, the Kennedy quote with the moonshot. This is like our moonshot. That reminds me of a quote from Goethe, I think is how you say his name. And he said, "Dream no small dreams, for they have no power to move the hearts of men." And we want our book to be more than just a nice read. Okay, well, that was a good book. We want more than just a good book. We want to move the hearts of men with the way that our book works.
Right. We want those whoa moments when that sculpture comes into view, that in-world deep thinking and realization. But also we want some real-world thinking and realization. And
that, much like your sticky note.
Yes,
the sticky note you presented, we said that we were going to talk about.
Yes.
That's that real-world thinking.
Yeah, the seed of this is not original to me. It's there's a motivational quote that I've seen floating around before, and it's relating to time travel stories like what we're doing.
Okay.
When you're reading, experiencing a time travel story, oftentimes you realize how big of an impact going to the past and changing some small thing can have on the present. A lot of time travel stories are based around you go to the past, you change one small thing, and now the present is completely different. And we've learned as readers that is something that is accurate. You go to the past, you can make a small change, and that affects the future, or the present. But we often don't realize how much the small choices we make today can affect our future. And I think that can turn into a sub-theme
Mhm.
in the second half of our book, where we're looking at changes people have made to the past and also choices that they're making now that are going to affect the future.
And it's interesting to me how that sticky note came up just in the conversation of, I'm not sure if all this work is worth it. And I think future us will have wanted present us to invest in all of this planning. Even if sometimes we may have to take some of that work and delegate it to our future selves. I've heard that as a euphemism for procrastination. But when I look at the work that I have today, I have book writing work and we have non-book writing work. And sometimes we need to choose to delegate the book writing work to our future selves, because our future selves will have wanted us to focus some effort on some not book writing work. And those are the kinds of decisions that we have to be making today. What do we delegate to our future selves, and what do we invest in today?
It kind of reminds me how we went about starting this YouTube channel to begin with. When I think you were the one that came up with the idea, but you asked me the question, when is the best time to plant a tree?
Right. And you knew the answer.
I knew the answer.
And it was
20 years ago.
Right.
And when is the second best time to plant a tree? Today.
Because and interesting how that ties into your other quote, because the future us 20 years from now will have wanted us
to do the hard things
and to make the investment. They will have wanted us to have started the YouTube channel now, while we don't know what we're doing, so that we could build up that history, that backlog of the journey that we're taking to becoming New York Times best-selling authors.
The future us, when we're writing that scene at the end of the book, will have wanted us to go through the practice, the thought exercises of figuring out what that looks like.
My challenge for you today is, imagine having a conference call with your future self, or a Zoom meeting. What decision do they hope that you will be making today? If it's something that you can share publicly, we'd love to read it in the comments. And we will see you again next week.
See you next week.